Well, that gets around the copyright problem. So, welcome to another GJ's video on some funky stuff. So this week I thought I would do it on my Jimi Hendrix Stratocaster, which inspired another guitar which I've been playing for about 6 months now, which I just can't put down. It's fantastic. But we're not going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about the Fender Jimi Hendrix custom shop Strat. So, what's the thing with the Hendrix Stratocaster? Well, obviously Jimi Hendrix was a left-handed guitar player, so he turned his guitar around the wrong way, so obviously you ended up with a kind of reversed headstock, which did bring about some interesting features with the instrument. So what that did was, with the string tension and a left-handed guitar neck, what you end up with is the E string is obviously longer, and the low E that is, and the high E string is obviously shorter. So what that does is it creates a tension on the strings where if you've got, I mean I've strung this with 10s on it, but it would give my high E string a feel of 11 gauge string, and my low E string gives it an illusion of a 42. So it sort of feels heavy on the top, and on the bottom of the instrument it feels very slack and easy to play, which does take some getting used to. So if you do end up with a guitar and you want some left-handed headstock arrangement on it, you do need to bear in mind what it does to the string tension. I really like it, to be honest. I've really got on well with it this year. And when I got this guitar, it sort of, like I said, it inspired my guitar I had made for me. So the other interesting feature about doing that is it makes this pickup go obviously the wrong way round. So obviously historically the bridge pickup would be this way in the body, and obviously on the Hendrix it's forward, so it does sort of make the pickup sound a bit different. So the Hendrix Custom Shop Strat is made out of an older timber, so it's pretty light, it's not too bad. It's within the realms of probably some around £7 something, I would have thought. It has got 4-bolt neck. This is based on a 63, I believe. So it's got quite a wide chunky neck on it, which is lacquered, so there's no relicing on this instrument, and it's not aged. So I've had this a little while now and there's no aging on it whatsoever. So you know, it's going to take some serious wear if you want to end up with it looking pretty road worn and used. Vintage style machine heads, which I really like. These ones are standard, they're not compensated or anything like that. Obviously you've got your string tree on the low strings, not on the high strings. It's got a 3-ply scratch plate on it, which is obviously more 60s, so you've got this nice sort of black bead round it. I've left mine with the trem, so it's actually working, unlike the Gilmore one that I did last week. This one is the full length, which is what Hendrix had. I did use a curly Hendrix lead just for the purposes of the tape. It's got a 5-way switch in it, which is pretty non-standard. I think back in the 60s you probably found that it still would have had a 3-way, so Hendrix probably would have wedged it if he wanted it out of phase. This one's got a 5-way in it, normal tone controls like a normal Strat. Okay, so I guess let's hear what it sounds like. I've got quite a lot of custom shop guitars, and I've got a lot of custom shop signature series guitars. And as I've said in previous videos, all my guitars that I've bought, I've always wanted to and had the mindset that I would gig them. So that's been really important when I've bought an instrument. I've always thought I've got to take it on a gig and I've got to enjoy using it. So the things that are important to me is the neck profile, like quite a chunky neck, and obviously the tone of it, or a direction that I was going in at the time with my music. I've got loads of Stratocasters. It's been my main sole instrument since I started playing, really. The thing with the Hendrix, and this is the thing with signature series guitars that you need to think about, obviously they're based on that guitarist. Now the thing that's very interesting with the Jimi Hendrix signature series guitar is the fact that it's left-handed but set up for right-handed players. So it gives a whole different vibe in the way that you might use it, or you might like looking at it. One of the weird things which took me loads to get used to when I was playing this instrument, when I started thinking about getting a left-handed sort of strung neck guitar, is the headstock. Because if you look down at your instrument a lot, which a lot of players do, they're always looking at their hands to see what their hands do. I certainly do it. The headstock is really big on the end. So when you look at it, it's obviously got a 70s style. That's what they did in the 70s, that big sort of 70s headstocks. But when you look at it, it takes some getting used to when you look left to it, which is a bit weird in itself. And obviously when you're tuning it, obviously that takes some getting used to, because the tuning pegs are on the bottom of the instrument. So you have to, when I first started, you could almost nearly tune the wrong string if you weren't careful. Obviously Hendrix was taken very early from us. When he came on the scene, he sort of, took the place by storm. I remember reading about some of the things, when he was playing, he got up and played with Cream, and he sort of just blew Clapton off the stage. No one could believe what he was doing with the instrument. He definitely pushed the boundaries of the guitar and took it to a new level, which is really interesting. Obviously, I've been a big Clapton fan forever now, and obviously that's more or less how I fell into the Hendrix thing. Obviously, following Clapton, then you hear him talking about Jimi Hendrix, which was obviously really interesting. I do think these signature series guitars are fantastic. If you are thinking of getting one, or getting anything signature series, sometimes the thing to think about is it's actually quite a good investment, because these instruments rarely go down in value. They usually go up because they're rarity, and they're a nice thing to actually own as well. So like I said, I have gigged this guitar. It's a great sounding instrument. You can, it's very versatile. Stratocasters are. So that was kind of my main reason for getting one. Let's have a look what it looks like in the case. This is the best bit. Look at that. Absolutely fantastic. I love this red velvet. It always looks great. Fender thing on it. Looks brilliant. So you always get with a custom shop a little handbook that tells you about it. So this is the specs of the instrument, what it's made out of, the specs of the pickups and all that kind of stuff. Comes with a certificate. If you ever buy a custom shop, always make sure you keep the certificate. It's what makes it worth the value of it. Gives you the serial number, the date it was made, and all that sort of stuff, but looks pretty cool. Then you also get a kind of vintagey strap, which is pretty cool. I always make a point of never using this stuff in the case people do use it, but I always like to keep it. It's just something that comes with it. So that's pretty nice. It comes with the mortal cover for the tremolo, which I never ever use. It gives you some more springs, and it's always got the Allen keys in it to adjust it. I don't know what this is. I've never opened that, so I'm not going to. Customer care, don't know what that is. There you go. Extended warranty, probably the warranty card with it. You get that in all American Stratocaster cases these days, and this one seems to have the custom 22 book they've put in with the instrument, which tells you about the materials of the bodies, the shapes, and some of the specs of the guitars, and oh look, some of the stuff of them actually making them. There it is. So you can see on the back you've got the Jimi Hendrix signature, custom shop transfer as well, which they do lacquer over, which is really nice. It's fantastic. And you can also see on the back plate, it gives you the serial number, authentic Hendrix. Then if you look in the manual book, it also tells you the signature of who made it, which is Ron Thorne, director of the custom shop. How cool's that? So custom shop Stratocasters that are signature series, or Telecasters, whatever you want. It's custom shop signature series. But I think the things to think about when you buy these guitars, which I've said before, really, you need to think about they're quite a lot of money, but they do hold their value. That's the thing. So they've always got good resale value if you want to move them on. So investment wise, that's pretty good. That's what you can certainly say to a loved one if you're buying one. The thing that I do think everyone should bear in mind, and I certainly did when I bought these instruments, don't think if you buy a Jimi Hendrix signature Stratocaster, you're going to sound like Jimi Hendrix, or worse than that, you're going to plug it in and you're going to get the same tone and the sound. I think as guitar players, what we're always after is that sound or that tone we've heard on that record, or whatever it is we're trying to play and recreate from what our ears have heard on a record. When you buy any guitar, you have to think that that's probably not going to be the case, and it's down to you to generate the style or generate the feel of the notes with a tone through an amp or whatever. I've modelled a lot of my stuff for these demos, so I've tweaked the settings and I've used my ears to tailor that to roughly, transpose it to out so you guys can hear that and roughly what it sounds like. I'm always a big fan of trying to do demos clean so you can really kind of hear the tone of the instrument. The minute you start putting pedals on things, you're going to colour the sound of it anyway. So I've tried to do that so you guys can really hear what the guitars sound like with nothing, and I've tried to sort of roughly play with the feel of those players who inspired the creation of these instruments in the first place. So that's just something to bear in mind when you buy something like this. The other thing is you could then tailor your style into that instrument, which is quite an interesting thing. So the big thing for getting this instrument for me was it pushed me into wanting a Stratocaster with a left-handed neck, which for all the features I said about the pickup, obviously being the wrong way around in the bridge, and the neck shape and the tension on the strings, which is the instrument now that I've been playing for 6 months, which I'm going to do a future video on. I would like to just say at this point, thanks very much for all the people that have subscribed to us and supported this channel. It's been overwhelming, really. It's been fantastic, and we're going to do a whole. We're going to keep this going, so we're going to host of things we're going to be doing over the next 6 months or so, which is all pretty exciting. So I'll catch you next week.